Welcome to the latest episode of The Hex with John Arnold, Armand Kafai, Daniel Robertson. Real quick, give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you are listening on Spotify, give us a 5-star rating. We would appreciate that quite a bit. Guys, we have the Liga MX final. Gold Cup rosters are out. MLS is playing way too many matches right now. So let's get into the 6 hottest topics of the week. This is The Hex. Liga MX crowned a new champion on Sunday evening. For the first time in 15 years, Diablos Rojos from Toluca are the champions. And John, you could tell just how much this meant to Toluca.
Yeah, great atmosphere. It always is in the Estadio Nemesio 10, but obviously in the entire playoffs, the home matches in Toluca have just had this huge energy around them. The final was no different, and it really felt like after that 0-0 draw when Toluca kind of changed their style. You know, they've been all gas, no brakes, attack. In the first leg against America, they kind of chilled a little bit, made sure that America couldn't find openings. Then the second leg, when they scored from a corner kick, it was basically all over. 0 shots on goal for Club America. That's not something we say very often. Talk a little bit, I'm sure, as we get into their future about what maybe needs to change and what modifications they need to make. But it's a club that had won the last 3 Liga MX titles, that was regularly competing, although not winning the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So for Toluca to win this title, it's a huge achievement. This is the same America team that knocked them out of the playoffs just a couple months ago in the Apertura in the first round. So Toluca's clearly improved upon what they started building probably a year and a half, 2 years ago. And this is a great moment for the club, for the city, which is going to go absolutely crazy about 5 p.m. Central Time. There's like a parade, and
nice.
it's going to be pretty nuts, I think.
Have you been there, John?
Yeah, it's a good. I mean, it's actually really close to Mexico City. It's like an hour and a half. Like some richer people, I think, will commute to Mexico City to work. But there's a lot of people that also just live in Toluca. So yeah, it's a cool place, great vibe. One of those kind of. A lot of the clubs in Mexico are either, there's the 3 in Mexico City, and then you have kind of these like circling Mexico City clubs. So like Toluca, Querétaro's a little far, Pachuca's relatively close, Puebla's relatively close, and then you get some of the teams elsewhere. But it's a proud club with a long history, 11 total titles, 3rd all time. I mean, that's really impressive, and they're chasing down Chivas, to be honest. So we'll see if they get him. But it's a huge moment, and I thought it was, more methodical than I expected over both legs. The final, Turco Mohamed, the coach of Toluca, who also had won championships with America, Monterrey, and Tijuana, said after the game, it was ugly to watch. Second leg was definitely more fun than the first. Second leg wasn't exactly what we'd come to expect from Toluca either, but I think that indicates just sort of how wise this team was and how the goal was always to lift this trophy they ended up lifting.
Yeah, the thing that stood out to me most as a Liga MX day tripper a little bit, who was locked in last night and to the game on Thursday, was it felt like in the final we saw how important it was to have an experienced manager. You mentioned Turco Mohamed, who I asked you last night, and you mentioned in the group chat. He's the 3rd manager to have won Liga MX with 4 different teams, and to beat Club America in a final. What stood out to me most was that there were many, many moments that Toluca could have panicked and said, okay, 0-0. Oh, it was 0-0 after the first leg, 0-0 after an hour. You might see them press. And America, even though they didn't have a shot, was just waiting for that one moment that push a few too many numbers forward, get a little bit naive. But it seemed like their manager kept them completely calm the entire time. They trusted the process. And they in the end got the goal from the corner kick, and then obviously the PK as well. And I think a lot of that is down to the manager in these moments where you have to keep your head.
Well, Armand, I think that's almost why these games were boring, because Andres Jardine on the other side is not exactly known for losing his head. He's managed America to 3 straight titles. They're used to these situations as well. Armand, in a lot of ways, like part of the joy of Liga MX is the chaos, the mistakes, the things that happen in transition when one team pushes too far forward. This wasn't that. It was still an enjoyable series of soccer, but it wasn't kind of what we've become used to seeing from Liga MX.
It was interesting because when you watch a Liga MX final, you expect chaos.
Yep.
You legitimately, like most of the finals, you expect some sort of just chaotic moment to
red
happen.
Moises
cards.
Munoz, the goalkeeper, coming
Comes
forward
out.
to head in the last second goal for America.
That's
right?
what that's what you expect. But when Toluca lined up, and we saw it in the first leg, they said, "Hey, the first leg we want to come out unscathed, and we want to go into our second leg tied 0-0, and hope." And also, Paulinho being a late scratch really hurt them in that game as well. But the way that they did it was they forced America to go long on basically everything. America could not build and try to get those quick passes because there was 3 or 4 Toluca players swarming to the ball. Their line was super high. It was a lot like the Barcelona Inter game that we saw a few weeks back, except on the opposite end of like, hey, this is there's 2 chances. It's gonna be a really high scoring game, or it could be a low scoring game because the other teams can't figure each other out. And if you look, Barcelona plays a high line. Toluca also played a super high line. It forced America to be like, okay, like you're pressing us. There's room in behind, but can we find that room in behind? They could never find that room in behind. They had one opportunity where they hit the post. But that was kind of even just like kind of like a weird sequence of events to lead to that point.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Toluca, again, they're constantly swarming you, pressing. You can't be patient if you're America. And they weren't making enough, I would say, runs in behind. And even if they were, the balls were just falling aimlessly into Toluca hands, which is exactly what they wanted. They wanted them to pin them deep. They wanted them to make sure that, hey, they don't build out from the back. So I thought it was a great like managerial. Like again, the game. I think I texted you guys. The game was definitely trending in the favor of Toluca for most of the match.
The first 45 minutes was rough. Yeah, the first 45 minutes was rough, but like it felt like
from a neutral standpoint, it was not a good watch. But from a Toluca standpoint, it was a win.
But it seemed like at halftime, Turco Mohamed probably told his team, "Hey, we got exactly where we want to be right now. We wanted to keep it close. We got 45 minutes in our house to show them we're the best team in Mexico." And they had that confidence towards the end. And Armand, if you're saying that game was like Inter Barca, are you saying that Lamine Yamal is the next Alexis Vega?
Yes. Well, maybe that would be an interesting career trajectory for him. End up in Mexico too.
Hopefully he doesn't.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
I don't think we're going to see Lamine Yamal hit rock bottom at Chivas.
He is not eligible at Chivas.
That's a good point.
As far as I know.
All right, guys, we are still about, 6.5 weeks, almost 2 months away from Leagues Cup. But, boy, there is a mini Leagues Cup that you could argue is... we won't debate how important these next week games are versus Leagues Cup, which Leagues Cup is, of course, very important. But we have got Liga MX versus MLS this weekend with Saturday night, LAFC hosting Club America for the spot in the Club World Cup. What is it, a $10 million game? Sunday night. Probably more than 10 million.
Way more.
Way more than 10 million, depending on the exchange rate. Sunday night, Cruz Azul hosting Vancouver Whitecaps in Mexico City for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Armand, which match this weekend means more to you, and which match means more, do you think, to the region?
When it comes to the region, it should be the Triple C final. I mean, again, it should be a Triple C final when it comes to the region. This is their premier tournament. This is what they, have a tournament for. And I think from a perspective of, hey, like an entertainment perspective, I'm more intrigued by that Sunday night match. Because when you go look at Vancouver, the style that they have imposed in MLS, it's been brilliant to watch. Cruz Azul is also super fun to watch.
They've been at home.
and they've been resting at home. Vancouver, I mean, shout out MLS. I mean, putting a Wednesday night game for Vancouver and kneecapping their team is pretty hilarious, but it's very on brand for what the league likes to do too. It's really good teams. But when it comes to the Saturday game, it's a one-off, as is the Triple C final. But I'm intrigued by a couple things because America's coming off a loss, and they did not look good. Did Toluca build the blueprint for LAFC? Can LAFC play that way? Can they make it ugly, or and have Boanga and David Martinez, inshallah, up the wings? But like for me, I'm more interested by that. But in terms of importance for the region, it should be the Triple C. But I would say importance for world football overall, I think it's going to be the Club World Cup play-in.
I said when they announced it, I think this is, if I'm CONCACAF, I'm pretty miffed. Because the thing is that I do think that, I personally love the CCC, think it's the most important tournament, and more excited for it, I'll say. However, when you talk about what means more to the clubs themselves, I guess it would be massive for Vancouver to win this trophy. For Cruz Azul, the scenario is a little different. They still need a trophy. But even if they win the trophy, guys, they're going to fire Vicente Sanchez as a manager. Like, it doesn't, I
Really?
mean, it's internal beef, and Almada might come from Pachuca. And I mean, it's just classic sort of like off field Mexican drama. He doesn't get on with the sporting director, he never has. And they're not going to keep him no matter what happens. But it's huge that if Vancouver wins the CCC, Cruz Azul, whatever, the calculation is different. But when you talk about the financial things that are at stake for America, I started to write in the newsletter about, well, what's next for America? What do they do? And it's like, man, if they win this playoff game against LAFC, they have this massive transfer war chest.
Mm-hmm.
And they can kind of say to players, hey, stick with me, man. We're going to have this great tournament. Yeah, maybe we'll sell you on in the winter, maybe next summer. But let's do Club World Cup. Let's try and win another league. And then let's win the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And then we'll see what happens down the road. If they lose this game, all of a sudden the calculus changes. They don't have, look, it's America. They're not broke. But this sort of influx of cash that would come with the Club World Cup isn't there. So I think that game is more important to the future of these clubs. And the other thing that I'm interested to watch, we've talked about the extra transfer window that MLS teams that are participating in the Club World Cup are getting, the allocation money that these teams are getting. If LAFC suddenly joins that club, I do think the knock-on effects we're going to see for Miami, for Seattle, and potentially for LA could be, in a league as restricted as MLS, the ramifications are quite long-lasting. Mm-hmm. That's why I think whatever happens this weekend in that playoff game, the America LAFC game, will have far more echoes long-term than whatever happens in the game that I'm more locked in on the CCC final.
Yeah, there's an air of NBA draft lottery to this LAFC Club America match because it's a get out of jail free card for two teams, and which one is going to get it? Because for LAFC, we have seen just cracks in the foundation over the last year or two where they went from being kind of number one with a bullet in MLS along with Columbus, but a jewel team of winning with stars. Been a little bit of cracks recently. They're playing really well right now. If they win this, like you said, John, the everything changes. Everything changes for them, just like with the Mavericks when they got Cooper Flagg. Everything changes. They get a transfer war chest. Armand, we said it last week, how important having that 1 week window of making transfers could be for LAFC. Maybe you get that player from Europe who's kind of on the edge on, do I want to join them? Do I not? And then for Club America, we talked about this, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago, how pivotal these 3 weeks are, where it's like, they could have gone from semifinals of CONCACAF Champions Cup, finals of Liga MX, into Club World Cup, potential not like a treble, but almost a treble type thing, to nothing. If they lose on Saturday, manager's going to be gone, players could leave, who knows what's going to happen. They might be in a total, and again, like you said, John, the Club America is almost never in a rebuild, quote unquote, but they could be in a little bit of a rebuild. That, to me, that's the game I care about right now, because I'm not going to be thinking about in 2 weeks, oh, Vancouver won Triple C, like that's cool. At the end of the day, though, I don't want to denigrate that competition because we know how important it is. But for me, again, the match on Saturday night, it has a WWE air to it. It has a,
It's going to be crazy when Leon runs down the tunnel. They're back.
Cashes in money in the bank. Yep. Yeah. Leon runs out, cashes in money in the bank, and takes the the Club World Cup spot. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's Saturday night. But of course, Sunday night will be interesting, and we'll talk about Vancouver in a minute.
One thing I want to add, guys, to this is I totally forgot this. I know John brought it up. There's another 650, 700K in allocation money that those Club World Cup teams got at the beginning of the season. Miami and Seattle got to use. I wonder if LAFC gets that money now that they're in it, and if they do get that money, can they use it in that 10-day window and go up to MLS teams and be like, hey, we want XYZ, we'll give you this allocation money, we have this left over, et cetera, et cetera. So something that didn't come across my mind, but that's another way in the league where there's a lot of parity involved, where maybe a little extra jolt of allocation money that comes in from qualifying for the Club World Cup could help them for the rest of the season, even though the rest of the season will be condensed with the matches that they'll lose in the middle of the week.
No, I mean, that's super interesting, right? Because at this point, we're about a third of the way, almost halfway through the MLS season. If you're a team that's like, we kind of know at this point, we're not going to make the moves we need to. Hey, we want a player in the summer, an extra $500,000 or $600,000 of allocation money, LAFC can go and find that player that's doing well for a team that's not doing that well. And it's kind of like an MLS team, trading draft picks this year, or an NBA team trading their draft picks this year to be better, or acquiring draft picks for their good players. Yeah, I mean, so many things writing on that game on Saturday. But guys, we're going to get into our winners of the weekend. And I will start us off since we just talked about them. For me, it was Vancouver because now, Armand, as you said, on Wednesday, they really got dealt a tough hand by MLS. Why is this game not being rescheduled? Vancouver set to host Minnesota.
MLS does what they do best. They kneecap their best teams.
No, I don't think that's fair, man. I think they generally clear the way. I think the Canadian Championship, the UCCC matches, I do think it's probably really congested. Plus, Vancouver isn't exactly famous for having access to their own home stadium. But it is crazy, man. When you think that Cruz Azul has just been at home and Vancouver's got to play some game in the middle of the week.
Yeah, so Vancouver, and not only just some game, they got to host Minnesota, which is actually a very important game. And not as games in the standings can get important.
I definitely punt on it.
Yeah, you got to punt. But for me, the game against RSL on Saturday night was their dress rehearsal to Sunday's game against Cruz Azul. They went down 2-0 at RSL within 5 minutes. Everything couldn't have started off worse for them. But what have we seen Vancouver do time after time this season in CONCACAF Champions Cup and now in MLS? They came back. Brian White, the player you want in form, as Brian White goes on Sunday night, is how Vancouver is going to go. Brian White scored 2 goals. Pedro Vite, another one of their best players, scores a banger from outside the box right on the start of stoppage time. The 3 points, not that important against RSL. I think it's the mentality, and they got out of it unscathed. And I think Vancouver, that's a huge result for them, and it's confidence that they can take. And again, they are going to know if we go down early against Cruz Azul, which very well could happen. Look, we came back against Monterrey. We came back against Pumas. They can do it again. So
we came back against RSL.
Came back against RSL. Some have called the Pumas of MLS. Armand, where are you looking in MLS winner this week?
Guys, I'm looking at Nashville. They have shot up the table recently. I know they beat Toronto 2-1. You might say, oh, anyone can beat Toronto, but I'm looking at their complete body of work.
They throttled them though.
And ever since their 7-2 win against Chicago, they've won 6 straight, or they've been unbeaten in 6 straight MLS games. Their expected goal difference is super high. BJ Callahan has these guys going, and Sam Sturridge is finally finishing those chances that we've kind of seen him miss quite a bit throughout. Remember when Nashville brought him in to begin with, his advanced numbers were great, but he just wasn't capitalizing on those chances. We saw that kind of struggle in the Leagues Cup, even though they made that deep run in 2023. But now with BJ Callahan, he's, I think, finally getting his identity down, finally getting them going. At the beginning of the season, they looked kind of rough, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But now they sit second or third in the Eastern Conference right now. If you look at some of their expected numbers, they probably could be higher. And at the beginning of the year, they weren't capitalizing on those chances. Now they are. They have Mukhtar going. They have Surge going. I really like what I've been seeing. And I really like what I'm seeing. Their additions the offseason have been pretty good too. With was it Klausem? Yep. Well, I said the kind of the Persian way, so it kind of came off differently. But I think again, they've done a really good job retooling this team, and I really actually enjoy watching them play, which I haven't been able to say about Nashville for quite a bit.
Well, and the other thing to me that's really impressive about that is they've been doing it without Walker Zimmerman. He's been out for the last 6 weeks. And typically when Walker Zimmerman goes out, as a guy who likes to study betting trends in MLS, Nashville, they can't keep anyone off the scoreboard when Walker Zimmerman is out. Now, their defense hasn't been great, but they've been just scoring so many goals that we got to give BJ Callahan his flowers. And John, you're looking to a team that finally bounced back a little bit.
Well, yeah, it had been since March, 8 matches in a row that Atlanta United hadn't found a victory. And honestly, going into the game, Sunday night soccer, well, I guess Sunday afternoon soccer.
Big game against, that was 6 o'clock, wasn't it?
And FC Cincinnati, I don't know if it gets the official branding because it's not the last game of the night. No, it was.
Yeah, it was.
Soccer.
Come on, John.
You're thinking of Liga MX. It wasn't the last game in North America. It was the last game
for me. Yeah. Anyway, it's a big game. I mean, Cincinnati's a good team. Yeah. They come to Atlanta. You think this could easily be more of the same, and it wasn't. Yeah, Atlanta got some lucky breaks. Latte Leth probably should have been sent off for that
for
body check. It's hockey season in Nick Haglund. Yeah. But I think if you're Atlanta, you take it any way you can get. And aside from that incident, they were absolutely dominant in the first half. They went to the break with a 2-0 advantage, but it could have been 3 or 4. There were a lot of opportunities. Atlanta converted some, not all. They gave a lot back, but you're going to do that against Cincinnati even if you're a good team. I think Atlanta for so long has been looking for this win that sort of could be used as a mental boost. How do we break the schneid? How do we bounce back? How can we sort of start to get belief in Ronnie Deila, in the fact that Miguel Almiron is back and good? How can we sort of say Moranchuk fits in? This game sort of gives you a little bit to pull off on all those things. A good game from Moranchuk. I thought a good game from Almiron, and Atlanta gets the victory. They're not out of the woods yet. It's the third win of the season, the first one in 8 matches. But I do think this is something that if the 5 stripes are going to turn things around, we probably look back and say this is where it started. Might not happen, but this was the kind of game that had the right ingredients against an FC Cincinnati team that is really good. 4-2 victory. You can pull a lot from that. Atlanta United, my winner of the weekend.
Well, and here's the tweak. Deila moved to 5 at the back, and Armand, who did he play at right back? When I saw this game, I thought, when I saw the lineups come out, I thought, there's going to be goals in this one way or the other. He made a tweak that I think could be the thing that sparks Atlanta.
Yeah, he threw Saba in there. And
right
that's
back.
what Valentin did at the end of the year, too, last year. He had Saba as a wing back. And that
Rab Valentin.
and so like that definitely provides a little bit more width and has Saba, who's a great crosser of the ball, a great attacking minded fullback, well I guess wing back in this instance to do so. But I wonder how long Latte Law is going to suspended, because I think he will be suspended.
You think?
Yes,
Wow.
I think he'll be suspended for it. Like I'm surprised that that VAR never picked it up. I thought it was a clown show. If you watch the replay, and I watched the replay, and I was like, he's not even going after the ball. It's a direct line.
It goes after him, man.
He lined him up.
And
it was hockey.
Again, I don't know if it's like if MLS will treat it like it's hockey, where they kind of do it based on like, player got injured, they'll like blood or whatever. But
whatever, man. They don't do anything in the NHL. You can slash a team's best center and nothing happens.
Nothing happened. But a fractured rib and a messed up lung. I mean, I feel like that was a bit. I mean, on top of another call we saw in an earlier game, I thought it was a bit ridiculous that VAR just didn't like. What did VAR see? Like, I don't understand what VAR saw in that moment.
I don't think they saw anything, I guess.
I don't know. But Armand, the thing that you've said this a lot earlier in the season was that Atlanta, and to me, it's 4 goals for Atlanta because they've been struggling to score, and that is a huge thing. But they had too many like-minded players, and it seems to me Deila found a way to get Moranchuk, Saba, and Almiron on the field and not playing the same positions and productive, and because they're playing Almiron and Latte Lath up at the top in kind of a 5-3-2. So I thought that was super significant on the Atlanta side and something you'll definitely want to watch going forward. Moving to the international game, which will be a huge next, month and a half of our lives as the Gold Cup is right around the corner.
Daniel, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
I feel like every summer is a soccer of summer. Or the summer of soccer, excuse me.
It is,
like,
but that sounds right. Like, we call baseball the boys of summer. Every summer, they're the boys of summer.
Exactly.
Maybe one year, baseball won't be the boys of summer. I don't know.
It's funny, when I was watching a 2-end for the Liga MX, I was like, it's the summer of soccer. It's like, damn, I've heard this like 8 times in the last 8 years.
It's always the summer of soccer.
It never ends.
It's inevitable. You can't get away from it. But hey, it puts money in all of our checking accounts in some aspects. So, in my opinion, long live the summer of soccer. And one guy, though, who is not going to be participating in the summer of soccer, he's tapped out. He says, I don't want no summer of soccer. I want summer on the beach. I want summer in Pennsylvania. It's Christian Pulisic, who the U.S. men's national team pre-Gold Cup roster is out. I assume they pick the entire Gold Cup roster from this training roster.
It's not clear.
Yeah, I don't know if there's guys who, because there's a few guys, right, like the Anthony Robinsons of the world who I don't know if Zendejas not on the pre.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys. Anyways, one guy that will not be there is Christian Pulisic, who specifically requested not to be on the roster, and they noted that in the release about it. John, you see this as a big issue, right?
I think so. On the one hand, I am sympathetic to the fact that players are playing too much, that there are too many games. I agree. But at the same time, when you look at the Gold Cup this summer, we've spent a lot of time, not just in the media, players have said this, coaches have said this, saying that every tournament before the World Cup is critical. You need that time together. You need to figure out what's the identity, who are the key players, etc. Pulisic will be the key player no matter what happens if he arrives in the World Cup healthy. And that's what people are saying. Well, this is so we can get to the World Cup healthy. He easily could have an injury in May with AC Milan that has absolutely nothing to do with him resting or not resting at the 2025 Gold Cup. Christian Pulisic is the face of this team. He's the star of this team. I was going to say he's embraced that role. Maybe he hasn't. He seems a little uncomfortable sometimes with the star status, but he's the most important player. Mexico's most important player wouldn't miss the Gold Cup. Costa Rica's most player wouldn't miss the Gold Cup. Jamaica's most important player is not going to miss the Gold Cup. Canada's most important player injured, but the players after that are not going to miss the Gold Cup. So why is Christian Pulisic missing the Gold Cup? Daniel, do you know how many Gold Cups Christian Pulisic has lifted?
One?
None. Christian Pulisic has never won this Continental Championship. He's never won the Gold Cup. So why are you going to say, I don't need this? Who cares about the Continental Championship? You never won one. You're the face of the team. You're the biggest star 1 year before the most important tournament of your life, and you're going to spend it on the beach? AC Milan, Daniel, how many European games are they going to play next year?
0. They are not. And their coach got
Is he going to
fired.
play 50 games again next year?
No, absolutely not.
So you had a big season. Totally agree. You had a long year. You can't play 5 to 6 more games this summer before you take your vacation and then have a less intense season before the most important tournament of your career. I don't think it's a good calculation. I don't think it's a good look. I think Christian Pulisic should be on the team.
I think there's two different sides here, John. I don't have a problem with him missing the tournament. I think that it is totally fine if he wants to take the summer off. I think that you said it. We know this Gold Cup is about figuring out who are the guys that are going to be making an impact on 2026. But there are guys that are penciled in or are written in pen. Christian Pulisic is one of them. We don't need to see how he integrates into the roster, and maybe he gives us a look at other players who we can say, oh yeah, Brendan Aronson, or oh yeah, we can count on them. However, the other part of it that you said that I completely agree with is you are not the leader of this team if you don't play in this Gold Cup because you're tired. And it's like any job. If other people do not take leadership roles and you spot that leadership role and you can step into it, you do that. And I think this is an opportunity for someone else on the national team to say, and this creates problems. This will create problems because there needs to be a leader on this Gold Cup team. Maybe it's Tim Ream or whoever, right? But that if you want to be the guy who, let's say it's game 3 of the World Cup, it's halftime, you need a goal to advance. If Christian Pulisic is the one talking to you in the locker room like, hey, come on, guys, whatever, are you taking that as seriously when you're like, well, you weren't here in the Gold Cup when we suffered through this? Maybe I'm overreacting on that, but I think leadership is earned, and this is a point where I think he could have handled it better. He needs to come out and say something. He needs to give an interview. He needs to go on CBS Sports, go on somewhere, give an interview to someone and say, I understand what this means that I'm not here. It is not lost on me, but I think it is essential that I take this summer off. I think he could have handled it better. I don't have a problem from a sporting perspective. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think it means anything to the USA's chances in the 2026 World Cup at all that he's not there on the field.
Real quick, Armand, I agree with Daniel's point that, like, if new information comes out, everything can change, right? Oh, I'm going to have a small procedure, nothing serious, but like, you know, a sports hernia surgery, whatever. I'm totally throwing that out of thin air. I'm not saying anything. But even if he says, hey, I'm just so exhausted, I want the U.S. to win this tournament, I've spoken with Pochettino, you're totally right, Daniel. It changes the conversation. And Armand, for me, it's just a bad look. I think he should be there.
I'm getting more and more worried about the U.S. national team as the time goes on.
Like the vibe, if you win the Gold Cup, is great.
Right. Yep. Especially coming off of Nations League.
To me, I was looking at the roster as we were kind of looking over our notes or getting ready for our notes for the show.
Pre-tournament roster. This isn't necessarily.
I know, but like even looking at that, it's just kind of like, I think Pulisic 100% should be playing in this tournament. Like it's just. And again, I understand player fatigue. That makes total sense. Like, players are being asked to do way too much. But this is going to be the biggest tournament of his career. Like, that's a fact. Because It is a home World Cup. This is not going to be in 2030 where you're going to be in Spain, Morocco, and some random South American countries because FIFA wanted to rig it. It might even be a more diluted tournament, 64 teams in there. Like that's been popping up as well. This is the biggest tournament to represent your country. I understand that you're tired. I understand all those things, but other players are also tired as well. And I'm not trying to say that we should be running players in the ground, but Lamine Yamal played more minutes. I know he's younger. There's a bunch of other players that played a lot less minutes.
You don't even have to go into like Lamine. Like it's not as many minutes, but look at how many minutes and how many matches Raul Jimenez played, who is older, who has had injuries. Like he's going to be at
some point. He knows he doesn't. Raul Jimenez knows he doesn't want to give up his spot, and there's probably a feeling because there are players that could take a spot from starting. It's not a good look that the U.S. that Christian Pulisic feels so comfortable in his spot.
It's terrible.
It feels like he can take off the last competitive tournament.
I think it's and people have tried to psychoanalyze, and I've read some good stuff, but like I think it's very interesting. Like Pochettino takes over and he basically says, "Hey, it's my first time with a national team, but let me tell you, when I played for Argentina, we would have given absolutely everything to play for Argentina." Who doesn't skip Argentina matches? Messi. Dude, Messi charters planes to Bolivia so he can get to games. He doesn't play every single match, but like basically, and he's a lot older and he's got a lot more miles on his legs. If you want to get to that level, if you want to be that guy, if you want to be Messi, look, I'm a Messi fan over Ronaldo, but Ronaldo, when is he taking tournaments off? Teams don't take, and some of this is that the Gold Cup happens too often. It's every 2 years instead of every 4 years. Some of that is baked in, but you don't see the best stars in the game taking continental championships off.
And John, it's the most important tournament of his career, like his national team career. Like a home World Cup is like everything to most players.
Right. But I mean, I think his argument would be, "Oh, well, this is how I get healthy." But I'm just saying, man, before every single major tournament, before every single World Cup, we have players who do suffer. We don't like to see it. It makes us frustrated. We see players who suffer injuries. I don't want that to happen to Christian Pulisic. And look, if the messaging is our sports science people have looked at it, and if he plays this Gold Cup, the risk of a hamstring injury is X% higher, everything kind of changes, right? We don't have that context right now. They didn't give us that context. Pulisic didn't give us that context. Milan didn't give us that context. U.S. Soccer didn't give us that context. So all we have to go on says, this isn't wise.
Plenty of names, however, to look out for in this U.S. roster, which, again, we're not sure if it's the exact Gold Cup roster, but the United States will play 2 friendlies before the Gold Cup on June 7th in Hartford against Turkey, and then a few days later on June 10th in Nashville against Switzerland. And Armand, when you look at the names here, there are certainly plenty that speak out to you. And let's just say this is the Gold Cup roster for a moment. Maybe there will be an Anthony Robinson or a Tyler Adams is on this roster, but maybe there will be an Anthony Robinson, etc. Which names are you looking for on here? What gets you excited about this roster?
I mean, not much, but
come on. Okay, just skip ahead to the next segment, guys.
When you look at the
chapters in here, just skip ahead. There's nothing exciting here.
When you look at the roster, I'm intrigued by Sebastian Berhalter. The midfield is always. Yeah, he's on. I mean, will he play? I mean, I hope he does. They call him up. They gotta try something, right?
Sure.
I mean, we gotta see if he can, match up with some of the other guys. But when you look at Berhalter and being a guy in the middle, the middle of the park has been kind of hit or miss for Pochettino. When you watch some of the matches, they haven't had control over games. Tanner Tessman in some games has looked kind of rough, starting in that role. I think Berhalter has a chance to potentially kind of take it by the horns and be like, okay, hey, like there's going to be no nepotism now or accusations now with Berhalter, Greg Berhalter not coaching a team. And now you have a guy who's been really good in MLS, who's been really great for Vancouver, who's actually even added a little bit of an attacking prowess as well going forward. Good set piece delivery, which the U.S. national team has completely struggled at having. I think he could definitely fit in some way with this team and provide something in the middle, which is, again, something that they've been kind of lacking throughout the Pochettino time. I'm really interested to see that. I know, John, that a lot of people have been talking about, I think, is it Alex Freeman from Orlando City quite bad. I've seen 8 pieces about him in the last 3 weeks. I guess his
he has a cool
story,
work.
Yeah, it's a cool.
He has a cool story.
good
It's
PR
funny to see
team.
repeated.
I
And a
think
good PR
outside
team.
back is an interesting spot, partly because of the return of Serginho Dest and the first time that we would see Dest under Pochettino and his staff. I think, it was an area where when you watch some of the matches that they played so far, yeah,
Yunus
there were some
Musa,
problems.
your beautiful right wing back.
Yunus Musa jammed in there. Joe Scally with some difficult times. So I think that is a position I'm looking at. Dest is this guy who he's been sort of boom bust, where he's so attacking. He can do some crazy things going forward, but often sort of switches off or doesn't remember or doesn't want to get back and defend, which is critical for your defenders. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch how he fits in with Pochettino. If a guy like Dest, who has his footballing education in Europe, is sort of able to add something, or not that he would disrespect a previous manager, but if they just connect and vibe well with Pochettino and the staff, given the fact that Dest, spent so long in that Barcelona system and area, where this Pochettino staff also is familiar with, I wonder if there's some kind of shared connections that they might be able to draw off of. So he's a name that I'm happy for the U.S. to see back, and I think it'll be interesting to watch this summer.
Yeah, I'm Armand. I'm the opposite of you, man. I'm more excited about this after seeing the roster. I think the roster is super exciting because for me, it's looking out for who. And Armand gave me the stink face over here. Who are the guys that take the U.S. national team from just getting through the group stage at the World Cup to being a contender? The guys that can make the U.S. go from good to great, and the guys on that are Fuller and Balogun, if he's in form. Johnny Cardoso, if he's in form. Serginho Dest, if he's in form. This tournament is huge for them, right? Like and Serginho Dest hasn't played in months. This is a great opportunity for him. Fuller and Balogun hasn't played in months for the national team. Great opportunity. So to me, it's super exciting to see if these guys can get back to that. And if they are dominant in the Gold Cup, which players of their pedigree should be dominant in this tournament, then I'm feeling really good about the national team next summer. Look, if Christian Pulisic is scoring goals in the Gold Cup, great. Like, what does that tell us? Not a lot. If we are seeing Balogun back in form, Dest playing well, I think it's huge for the national team. And to be honest, we haven't seen Chris Richards play that much for the national team. Like, he's played in Nations League and he's played in the World Cup. That's basically the competitions he's played in. So I think this is a great opportunity for him to, hey, as we said in the last segment, who are the guys from a leadership standpoint who can step up? Chris Richards needs to be one of those guys. He's 25. He just started in the FA Cup, won the FA Cup. Hey, go do it for the national team now. Go prove you're a dominant guy. Take the U.S. to win the Gold Cup. To me, it's super exciting. And then there are some of those, names that we haven't seen much. Again, can Diego Luna show that he needs to be in the picture? And
I thought you guys were going to pick Diego Luna, so I didn't pick him.
Well, we have a long time to talk about Gold Cup. It still doesn't start for another, 3 weeks. But yeah, I mean, Armand, I think you're discounting it a little bit to say that there's nothing exciting about this. I think there's still plenty of names. And yeah, we'll see
Well, who's your one player? Is it Chris Richards?
One player for me is Serginho Dest. I mean, it's what John said, because he is the player that can he is one of those X factors that takes the U.S. from being, okay, well, we can just key in on Pulisic and one or two other guys and the U.S. isn't going to score on us, to this is a wild card that can score an awesome goal that can win you a game. Now, he can lose you a game as well, no doubt about it. But yeah, I want to see him do that in the Gold Cup. Win the game, not lose the game. All right, wrapping it up, guys. Segment number 6, and back to MLS. We saw some very interesting scenes on Saturday in what was a great game overall. San Diego, with, again, the Galaxy found another way to lose a game with, who was the guy, the defender who sliced Garces slices an innocuous ball in midfield straight into the path of Dreyer, and he sends a cross into Chucky Lozano, who that's a name we'll be talking about plenty over the next few weeks, and he scores the game winner. But some rough scenes after the game is, honestly, we saw this in their game against LAFC some, but there was some serious violence in San Diego after the LA Galaxy game. I mean, we saw some guys fighting in the stands where it looked like a guy was about to fall off of a second-story ledge. We've seen beers thrown. We've seen people getting punched. We've been to games in Mexico, rivalry games. We went to Pumas Cruz Azul. We've been to the Clásico, and they know how to deal with these crowds. Armand, well, we'll start with John here because you have a lot of experience this too in South America, in Southern California. This is something MLS, I think everyone agree. MLS needs to get a handle on this, and it's not a good look for the league, even if it's only happening rarely. What needs to be done here?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think first of all, when you talk about, there's a trend, right? One is San Diego. It's a new franchise who's had some growing pains. I think they've done a good job marketing to a lot of different communities.
Great
You
job.
get everybody, and sometimes there are people you don't really want to be there, or there for reasons that you don't want to be there. We've seen violence in the baseball series in
Yeah.
Southern California and also extending to Northern California with the Giants,
NFL.
Dodgers. People have died after fights because of head trauma, and that's just, yeah, I mean, it's so horrendous and silly and stupid. I think that the clubs and the league need to do a better job highlighting games that are going to be high risk and increasing the security presence from there. There are MLS, I would say the vast majority of MLS matches, thankfully, are going to go off without any incident between fan groups, players, whatever. You can have a pretty low key security plan. Everything's going to be mostly fine. When you have these matches between these teams from Southern California, where there's already existing frustrations, sometimes between the soccer supporters group, sometimes between baseball supporters, all these different, moments, I think you really have to say this is where we need to have a real plan and look to what we've learned from big events like a Super Bowl, but also, yes, what can we learn from Latin America? San Diego actually does a decent job of cross-border stuff with Tijuana when we're talking about crime and organized crime and that kind of violence. What can we learn on the sporting side? These are important things to talk about, and I think that you just really have to make sure that the matches that could kick off are being circled on the calendar for the security presence, because it clearly wasn't good enough Saturday night. Really bad, gross, and also scary scenes for what should be a great day out for the family in San Diego, or even if you drive down from Carson and you're wearing a Galaxy shirt. We don't want to be a league like Argentina where like there are no traveling fans. You are not allowed to wear the other team's jersey. That really kills a lot of the fun and the vibe, and makes it seem like the sport is only for a certain type of people, those quote unquote brave enough to go to the stadium. That's not what we're about here, and MLS isn't in danger of that,
No,
I
no.
don't think. But you got to nip this in the bud, or it starts to get to that point.
Yeah, and Armand, we experienced this in Mexico. How did they deal with it?
I mean, just increased security measures. You can't
No
wear a
belts.
belt.
Yeah, you can't wear a belt. That's it.
You can't wear a belt. But I mean,
Hopefully MLS never gets to the point where you can't wear a belt.
yeah, that would suck. But I mean, the funny thing is, like, often people would be like, okay, hey, like, they would more expect going to a Liga MX game to have more quote unquote violence than like going to like an MLS game. Like, and to be honest, when we go to like Liga MX, we were guys like we saw teams in opposing jerseys. We saw in the Clasico, we saw a woman who was wearing an America jersey take off her America jersey, have a Chivas jersey underneath, and people were just giving her shit, but no one was like trying to like do anything. Her obviously is different.
And not that Mexico's a utopia, man. I mean, there's fights all the time there. The Querétaro incident not that long ago. Like things definitely happen where they don't have it right either. But
That one image is the one that like sticks in everyone's mind, even though it happened years ago, and it's a very rare event, right?
well, and I think also like it is. Sorry, Armand. Like it is a game where like it wasn't. It's not the Clásico Nacional, like whatever, right? But I do think that generally you can avoid things like that if you plan for the
just gotta plan ahead. That's it, really. Like it's.
Also,
I think,
stop being dumb.
Well,
yeah.
Well, this guy stole a
Stop
flag
fighting.
or a scarf or what? I mean,
well, and I'm not. Look, I'm not the. I've never been to Snapdragon Stadium. I'm certainly not the director of ops in MLS, and I don't want to talk about things I don't know about. But there is something that seems pretty obvious here. Why is there not a line of security between the supporter section and everyone else? Well, that seems. And why are you putting the supporters in an area where they are above the away supporters in an area where they are above other people and can throw things on them and do things to start that? They need, in the Azteca, they put the away fans for the Clasico in the very top corner where they can't really access anyone else, and there is still a buffer of like 10 rows in between where like they don't let anyone sit near them, right? And that, again, like you said, John, this should only happen for 3 or 4 games a year. This does not need to happen very often. And frankly, we don't see, it seems like LAFC and LA Galaxy have done a pretty good job of limiting this. Like, we saw violence at first, it seems like, and maybe this is just a first year growing pains, and this is something that never really happens in the future, because it seems like they've gotten it figured out in Trafico, where they know exactly how. And when we went to the Pumas Cruz Azul game, which I still wouldn't say is like a huge rivalry in Mexico, it is two Mexico City teams, but it's not like, it's kind of like the Angels and the Dodgers. Like, yeah, they're in the same city, but there's not the rivalry like there is with the Padres and the Dodgers. They kept us in the stadium for like 45 minutes in a driving rainstorm. In a driving rainstorm after the game, they didn't let us leave. Why can you not just do that? Just put a line of security. And because I think even at San Diego versus Galaxy, you could probably wear a Galaxy jersey in most sections. And as long as if you're not looking for trouble, you're not going to find trouble. And I'm sure even at this game, if you're not looking for trouble, you're not going to find trouble. So we don't want to highlight a bunch of losers to change total, but as we see in life, a few bad apples can ruin things for all of us. So getting a line of security in there, getting them in the right spot. Hopefully they figure it out, because we don't want to see this. And San Diego hosts Club America in a friendly like next week, right? I think San Diego has a friendly against Club America. They've got Leagues Cup coming
but that'll
up,
be mostly America fans.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know. I'm
we'll
talking
see.
trash.
We'll see. But we got some big games coming up this weekend. Looking forward to them. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you next week.